welcome back to another episode of Random Podcast. This is Behind the Scenes, and I am mic testing number 1. I really hope the mic works over here. I really hope I'm in frame too. And see, the thing is, I'm right outside the office of the dean at Kennesaw State, and if the dean figures out what I'm doing and deems it illegal, I will be pretty fucked. So, wish me luck, everybody. I do these things for you. This is official start of episode 6. Welcome back to Random Podcasts. I'm Keegan, and we're joined with cameraman Aiden, who does not want to jump in front, but I'm still going to give him a shout out because I love him. Not like that, not like that.
Who doesn't love Aiden? Who doesn't love Aiden?
But today I'm joined with a very special guest, and I met him at the gym.
Yeah, gym.
And I'm going to let him introduce himself.
I'm Christian Cave. This junior, hopefully, at Kennesaw State University, studying environmental science. Yeah.
Okay. So I have, like always, got a bunch of questions, and yeah, let's start. Ooh, I just deleted everything. Back to this. Christian, tell me about yourself. How was your day today?
It's been hectic. Past couple weeks have been really wild. I've just been on the go, doing a lot of different stuff, a lot of interviews and stuff like that, and then trying to pass chemistry too. So shout out to Aiden again for being my sole motivation right now to become a scientist. But yeah, it's been good. Just living life.
What kind of interviews are you talking about?
It's crazy. I've been on the news a couple times, and then a couple like social media like conglomerates have reached out to me to get like the story of the pine snake and interview type stuff like that, kind of like this. So. The
story of what snake?
The pine snake, the ghost of the sandhills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what was the story behind that?
So basically, there's this area in South Georgia. It's like the fall line. So it's where the Piedmont region meets the coastal plains, and so you get really interesting biodiversity because you'll get some species that can only really thrive in the Piedmont, and then some species that can only thrive in the sand, like coastal plain sandhills area, and they'll just meet on that line and be in this habitat. Mm-hmm. And so in the fall time, when it's cooled down a bit, a lot more snakes are active on the surface, and coincidentally, these are a lot of the snakes that people want to see. They're like herpers, they call us, people who are interested in herpetology. They want to see certain snakes like that, eastern diamondbacks, pine snakes, mole king snakes, coach whips, different things like that. And long story short, I'd been grinding chemistry out for like 3 weeks in a row, and so I was just watching all my colleagues on social media go down there every weekend, and they were getting eastern diamondbacks, pine snakes, hog noses, like all these rare snakes. And I was stuck in class, like studying acids and bases. And so finally, I got a break in my schedule, and my good friend Bobby Harden Jr., he's a student here as well. He woke up at 4 a.m. with me to go down to South Georgia. We're cruising in the car. Looks like it's not going to be a good day because of the weather, so I'm about to give up, call it a day. And as I look over to him to say, like, all right, man, thanks for waking up and coming down here with me, bro. I'm sorry about the inconvenience. I just see a long, elongated silhouette on the side of the road flash by his window, and I was like, I just pulled the car over and was like, oh my gosh, get out of your car, get out the car, get out the car. And he's like, whoa, what? And Bobby's like, he's been with me since like day one filming out there basically. So he knows just when I start losing my ability to speak and I'm freaking out, he's like, I just start filming. And so he just caught this really sincere, manic, and exciting video of me finding my first ever pine snake. And it was like a 5.5 foot long male. So
what got you into this? Why do you do this? What got you into it? When did it all start?
Well, today is
just a quick summary.
Okay, today is World Steve Irwin Day, so I think that's a good place to start. Steve Irwin, he was my hero growing up. When I was about 5 years old, he hit the television, and that kind of changed my life and made me more interested in reptiles, amphibians, and insects. But from my parents telling me just ever since I was a young kid, I was just always picking up bugs and bringing them in the house or catching stuff and doing whatnot. And then Steve kind of got me on a more focused path with all animals, not just insects. Mm-hmm. Then as I grew up, I just kind of retained that, and I just in my free time, leisure time, would keep insects as pets, or I would read about them in books and reptiles. And I had a big freshwater fish collection for a while, and all this stuff kind of built that into me. And then I graduated high school, had no clue what I wanted to go to school for or do anything like that. I just knew I had a passion for like theater, and I had a passion for wildlife. And I just, on a whim, started a social media, a little Instagram. I started posting videos on Instagram of me catching snakes during the spring and summer. Mm-hmm. And people at my old high school were like, you should do that. Like, you should do these like videos. And I was like, dude, I'm not that good. They're like, you're like that Australian guy. And I'm like, well, Steve Irwin? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, that's all I needed to hear. And so like I made like an Instagram, and I thought like, this would be a little fun thing to do over the summer. And then I think we started on like in June with like 100 followers or something, like local people. And then by the end of that summer, I had like 900. And then by the fall, I had like 2,000. And then it just started to like kind of stack up. And then in December of 2020, I jumped on TikTok, and everything kind of like blew up from there. Yeah.
So tell me about Caveman. How did that come to be?
So my name is Cave, of course. My last name is Cave. They call my dad Caveman at work, and I always just thought that was a cool little nickname. And then like since it's kind of wildlife related, I think it just fits. So it's like I was like, what's the name? Like what's the symbol gonna be? And
what's the point of it? Why do you do it? What's the why did you even stop that organization? If I'm not wrong.
I believe people need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I believe that I serve as that dramatic example. And so some people, can watch a documentary on an alligator snapping turtle or a snake and go, oh yes, like I see the importance of conserving that animal and why it's important.
Yeah.
And then some people just can't watch that. They think that's boring, but they'll watch a guy jump in the water, pulling out, and then talk about why that animal is important. And so I try to bridge the gap between those two audiences. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that's what Steve was. Steve was that dramatic example. You'd never seen a dude tackle a saltwater crocodile, then come out of the water with it and call it a beauty and tell you why it's important to regulating the Australian mangrove ecosystem. Like you never saw anybody like that. And then after we lost him, I feel like there was other people who definitely filled in that gap, Jeremy Wade, Jeff Corman, but we've never really seen, somebody that grabbed like a whole entire generation like that. And so I think that's why some people see Caveman as a little bit nostalgic. I get that a lot. Like people say, like, oh, I see you're so much like Steve. And I mean, that's just who I learned from. But that's why I do what I do, take the risks and go out there. I mean, I already have a passion for this stuff myself, but I really gained a passion for now sharing it with people around me. Because I've had friends who were deathly terrified of snakes be neck deep now in swamps in South Georgia, grabbing stuff out of the water and swimming with crocodiles and stuff like that, and alligators and all that.
So what goes through your head when you're actually interacting with the reptile? Especially something that that could, potentially cause harm to you.
A lot of quiet, surprisingly. Okay. Even though I'm rambling like facts and spitting them off like that, it's really it's very quiet. I'm never more focused in my life than when I'm dealing with something that can really hurt me. Like I just kind of, it's weird. Like I can't even hold my hand steady right now to save the life of me. But when I'm working with like a dangerous snake or a snapping turtle, I'm just very intentional with each movement, and I'm just really trying to connect, like, because you can see behavior from these animals, and so I'm just watching for, is this guy mad? Is he kind of calm? Is he just really not having it, and I really need to just do my thing and let him go real quick, or and always putting the animal first, of course. But yeah, it's probably a lot more quiet than people would think in my mind. Like just very on the outside I'm like but in my head I'm just like really calm usually.
Okay. And tell me, the whole process of exploring, where has it taken you? Like, what's the farthest you've gone to go explore?
This summer, probably the Everglades. I drove down there with a friend of mine, and we got to go down there and meet with some other wildlife enthusiasts. And it was cool. Like, I'd never been to South Florida. I'd only been to like Central Florida, and so like the wildlife was completely different. As you know, there's a lot of invasive species and stuff. Yeah. So like, I was just looking in these canals in the Everglades, and there's like fish that I wanted to keep as a pet that are from South America just swimming in these canals, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and everybody's like, yeah, you didn't know we had those down here? I'm like, this is an eel, like this is an Asian swamp eel, like right in front of me, and they're like, yeah, like, and crazy walking catfish and stuff like that, and they're swimming around and just weird stuff. And I got to catch my first ever python, which was a big moment, no pun intended. I mean, she's a 9.5-foot female, so that was pretty good. And I got to work with like USGS and give that female off to them to be used in research, so it wasn't just like a look at me on social media, it was like an actual reason to catch it and educate about it. And that's the farthest I've gone yet, but I just got my passport like last week, so I've got plans. I've been in contact with some scientists to hopefully get to the Amazon this year.
That's cool.
Or next year. So,
that makes sense. Okay. So tell me, what's one thing that you've learned from all of this that you can relate to life and just in general?
I'm trying to think of something that's relatable. Because I could be like, yeah, you never grab a snapping turtle, but they're like, like that doesn't help me.
Because life is a snapping turtle.
Yeah, life is a
It'll bite you in your ass if you grab the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's a good lesson. I'd say. I'd say if there's one thing I learned is be patient. It's taught me a lot of patience. Like, be patient. Work hard. Don't get me wrong. Work hard. Be strive for whatever you're going for. Mm-hmm. But also trust the process and be patient. Because whether it's standing on the side of a creek waiting for a 60-pound turtle to reveal itself underwater in water that you can't see in, or it's simply just waiting for your social media page to grow, and not doing things the sensational way that's unethical or what other people may be doing to get followers really quick. Like, I've had a lot of people tell me, bro, you're not as big as you could be. I feel like you could be so much bigger if you just started doing it. And I'm like, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z because that's what everybody else is doing, and I see the path that they're on, and I want to do it the right way. If there is a right way, I want to be on the right path, slow and steady, just keeping the morals, keeping the character, and being patient. And it all happens. And every time I've chosen to do that, it's taken a little bit longer, but it's always ended up being the better move. I've gotten better opportunities rather than many opportunities or whatnot. So, yeah.
So what does all of this mean to you? What's your motive to do this? What pushes you to go and grab stuff that people don't like grabbing? Okay, that came out wrong. Let's rephrase that question. What pushes you to go and interact with things that people would not want to interact with, being specific to reptiles and insects and turtles that can bite you?
I'd say I'm probably a little not as put together as most people. Like, when I see a crazy, creepy, crawly insect or something, I don't know what it is. Maybe I've just always wanted to just to hold it. Most people just don't really understand that aspect of like, yeah, like I get like why you like the snake, but why do you have to hold it? And I'm like, it's just something about having it like in your hands. You're feeling it, and you're like, wow, this is just crazy. I'm having like this one-on-one experience, and that's not always the best thing, especially if an animal's pregnant or it's eating or whatnot. So there's definitely areas where I use discretion, but what pushes me the most is just now it's more so like the ability to connect that to an audience. Because something like the pine snake that I thought was really going to be just a moment for me, like something that I always wanted, I just always wanted to see a pine snake, that ended up reaching like 5.2 million people, and putting me in a different domain, and that story stretched across news stations and whatnot. So many people were messaging me saying like, I didn't even know we had these snakes here. They're so beautiful. Like, wow, thank you for sharing this. And I was like, okay, so that's why jumping in the pond and showing that huge snapping turtle, or going and spending 12 and a half hours driving down dirt roads and beating up my little Honda Civic on these like back roads in South Georgia to find a one pine snake, all that stuff is worth it. It's just to share it, because people, if you have a connection to wildlife, you'll want to save it.
Okay. So what, in your opinion, makes a good wildlife explorer? First off, is it right for me to call you a wildlife explorer? Would you call yourself a wildlife explorer?
I feel like it's a compliment, but I feel like maybe it's a little
early.
Yeah, a little early. Like, because I haven't learned. I'm learning.
Yeah. So, yeah. But what are three key characteristics that someone who wants to get into wildlife should acquire or attempt to acquire?
I would say if we're looking for characteristics, you have to be patient. I know that's a recurrent thing, but so much of wildlife is just chance, like just random chance and just luck. And so if you're out there thinking you're going to go out there and get the target every single time, or some people watch my stuff and think that every time I go out I find the pine snake, I'm like, dude, it took me years till I find this one animal. So be patient, be open-minded, because even if it's something simple to you, to somebody else, that could be something mind-blowing. Yeah. Like a praying mantis to me, I've kept hundreds as a kid. I've studied different ones, and right now I have like 5 different exotic species in my bedroom, So the little common like Carolina mantis in Georgia, I'm like, oh, it's a pretty mantis, but I'm not stressing about it. But I've caught one of those and showed it off to a friend, and his mind is like, oh, he's like, what? Like this thing does this and that, and it's this important to the ecosystem. So be open-minded, because you never know what you could share that you think is insignificant with somebody else. And then I say the third thing is you got to be tough. If you're going to be explorer, if you're going to be an explorer, because I'm riddled with bites and from all types of things, from mosquitoes to snakes to turtles to to things I don't know of, to ticks, to leeches trying to engorge themselves on me, to all types of crazy stuff. So you gotta have some grit, as Steve would say. You know.
Fair enough. How much research goes into this on an average? Like, how much time do you put in behind the scenes?
If it's like something specific, like I know I'm gonna get that animal. Like for example, I did a documentary on the eastern indigo snake, and that took a couple months of like preparing and learning knowledge so that I didn't sound stupid in front of these scientists that I was talking to. But and I probably still did. But like I've been really lucky that the knowledge that I have to spit out in my videos, because I've only been in the Southeast so far, that it's just all been stuff that I've been looking at since I was a kid anyway. Yeah. So it just all is just there for the most part. Like I don't have to really, you know, most times look back and go, But that's not to say I still don't brush up on stuff. So probably a couple of hours, you know, a week just spent looking through new stuff and trying to find out new information.
And I'm gonna wrap it up over here and ask you, how can we as a community support, one, wildlife, wildlife exploration, and Caveman?
I'll start with how you can support wildlife is, I feel like you can do it in really two different ways, multiple ways, but I figure the two big ways I always tell people is, number one, start figuring out what type of wildlife you might be into. Start researching wildlife in your area, because the more competent you are about the wildlife in your area, the more you can share with somebody else. And that's going to help so much wildlife in your area. And that can be something that's, I'm not saying you have to go jump in ponds and catch salmon turtles to show people, but I'm just saying that maybe because you have an understanding, because you took the time to read up on your local finch populations, you realize that letting neighborhood cats outside is really detrimental to the environment, because they're apex predators and decimate bird populations. And so you can spread that information on to a neighbor or a friend or somebody who might just think, oh, I'm just letting my cat out to have fun, and he's really wiping out everything in his path, you know, before he goes back to eat his little dry food. Then, you know, you could also take, of course, the route of finding a conservation group or something that you're interested in. For me, I love the animals that aren't so talked about. You know, everybody's like, save the sea turtles, or save the pandas, or save the tiger. I'm like, let's save the eastern indigo snake, because, you know, that's in Georgia, you know, and it would be all over the place if its whole habitat, the longleaf pine savanna, which also has gopher tortoises, red-cockaded woodpeckers, all these other beautiful animals, wasn't being destroyed. So donate to the Orion Society, you know, and a group that's doing hands-on, boots-on-the-ground conservation in our state, like in Georgia, like 2.5 hours from here. They're doing work, you know, like crazy, right? And so you could do that, and then how you can support wildlife exploring, kind of the same thing as I said before, you know, start learning for yourself, you know, and just get out there, like experience it. Like, what doesn't matter where you are, you know? There's wildlife where you are, pretty much, unless you're maybe in the dead center of Atlanta. But like, you could probably go 30, even then, you can go 30 minutes to Sweetwater Creek Park and just walk around in nature and find yourself surrounded by tons of beautiful stuff. And then how you can support Caveman, just check me out, you know, on Instagram, TikTok, of course, have a Twitter, but I don't use Twitter. And then YouTube will be more productive on the way, but I do have a documentary out there. So if you're interested remotely in hearing me talk in long length about eastern indigo snakes, for sure check that out. But yeah.
Sweet.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you in episode 7, hopefully.
Episode 7.
Pushes you to go and grab stuff that people don't like grabbing. Okay, that came out wrong. All right, cut. But
this is a good time to mention I have an OnlyFans.
Wait, really?